Good morning and welcome to another Sundays at Chaumont, where I talk about the more technical aspects of what you've seen through the week. And this week is a proper big one because this week we're gearing up to start the roof. Now we're going to start on the turret because that's the highest bit, and the reason we're doing that, because we don't really want to do that because that's the most difficult bit, but the reason we're doing that is because if we start from the top, then anything that drops down, we're indefinitely going to end up dropping bits of slate and bits of copper and the odd hammer and stuff. What we don't want to do is be dropping that onto work we've already done, be cracking slates and have to get back on there. So we've got to start with the top and work our way down. And the turret is going to be, like I said, the most difficult bit of that. It's got the most copper work on it in terms of, for the surface of it. We've got 4 dormers all around, which are all going to be clad in copper. They've all got to be flashed. We've got to put copper guttering around the whole base of it, and we're actually making that super deep, a lot deeper than it was originally, to give this kind of big band of copper around the bottom. And we're doing a whole copper like capping. That's going to be as intricate as the guy can help us make, and that's going to come down quite a bit from the top, so it's actually going to be like a blinged up version of the old turret. The old turret kind of looked maybe a little bit unusual back in the day. It looked definitely like an add-on and a weird style, but I think by adding these embellishments we can soften it and we can elevate it to like this proper chateau status, so there's a lot to do on that. Before we can even begin to contemplate starting that, we've got to get the whole thing scaffolded. So we want to be at the very peak of the turret on scaffolding, so we've got a nice base, and the scaffolding will be going back onto each terrace as well. Now we all know I've never been big on the scaffolding thing, and that's been for a few reasons. One, at the very early stages we didn't have the money or the availability to even get scaffolding of this caliber, and two, there was no real use for it because yes, now we're doing external work, but all the work up until now has been internal. And if you remember, we had tons and tons of stuff inside. There was nowhere reasonable to even think about putting scaffolding on the inside. So this is the first opportunity we've had, and I didn't really want to block the facade for like months and months and a year or two. I think that's really important for us working here, to kind of get that boost and see it come together every day, rather than just see it on the last day when we take everything off. This scaffolding is actually the mason's. He's bought it, but he doesn't need it for a few months, so he's like, look, if you want it, if I can put it up at yours and you can use it while I don't need it. So that's why we've got scaffolding. So you've seen me starting the dormers, and I've done the dormers in one complete piece so we can just take it up there, and yes, they're going to be heavy, but it's going to be easier overall. We've already got the hole cut in there, so all we need to do is put a few locating blocks so we can put the dormer in place and we can fix it back in as many points as we can, and we'll do that on all 4 sides. Then after they're all mounted all the way round, we're going to be starting at the very bottom, and we're going to be starting with a guttering, and the guttering is going to be quite a thick band going all the way around, and the guttering is going to be hidden inside that band. So as a side profile, what you'll see is the roof coming down. We've got obviously the wooden A-frames which you saw us put up. The flashing is going to be like this. That will create a gutter, and then we're going to clad the front in copper. So all this face will be copper and the guttering will be hidden underneath. And even though that's not the original guttering system which was on the turret, actually I don't think there's really any guttering system on the turret, it just used to fall off. We haven't completely made this up out of thin air. This is the same guttering style which was on all the other bits of the roof. So the other bits of the roof have got this big granite ledge, and if you remember me and Brian taking the profile off of them, it was this same system where you had the facade, actually it was in zinc, but it was hiding this big guttering underneath. So it just created this really architectural detail around the top of the roof. After all the dormers are in and the guttering's in, we can then start battening and counter battening the roof. So it's similar to what we did before. We'll basically add strips of wood going downwards, thin strips all the way along, and then we'll re-membrane. So that membrane which we originally put on, obviously that's no good now. We'll put a new membrane over that whole thing, and then we'll put all the little lats going up which are going to hold the slates, and there's like a lot of them. So once we've got the wood on, what we're going to be using is thousands and thousands of these, which are called crochets. Now we've got the ones which is powder coated on their face that you see, so they're the same colour as a slate, so you won't see any of these shiny hooks. They'll just blend in with the slate, but that's a very, very common thing in France to mount the slates. You can imagine the hook goes on the wooden lat and the slate just slides onto them. Obviously the one above and below and at the side holds everything in place. Then just by the accumulated compound pressure, the one above holds in place the one below, and the hook at the bottom stops it from sliding down the roof. Super secure. And like I said, this turret in particular is going to be a lot more complicated than the other roofs. There's a lot more cutting in to do, so a lot more cutting of the slates at every single corner, at each side of the dormer, top and bottom. They're all cuts which really lengthen the process. Also, I've made the decision to make it just more difficult, because why not? You've seen a lot of roofs that the easiest way to where the two corners meet is to take a bit of flashing down that ridge. So that can be in copper or zinc or lead, or, you know, depending on the pitch, can be cement. But what I wanted it to be like more crisp than that. So there's a way that a lot of these kind of more upscale buildings and chateaux finish the edges, is that both slates just meet exactly flush, and you put the flashing behind the slates, so all you see is a perfectly slated roof with no kind of joiny bits. All the other bits, you know, just add to the roof rather than look like, you know, a patch kind of thing. So we're very much taking the roofer's lead on that. He's run big enterprises and he really knows what he's talking about. So as much as, you know, me and Brian has got roof experience as well, we're going to take his lead and he's going to show us how to finish all that easily. He's going to show us how to mark out the whole roof. Like I said, I've got an expert metal bender coming. It's his job solely to bend all the metal, to clad all the dormers, to do all the guttering and shape it. It's something we could do, but for someone who does that day in, day out, they're going to be able to do it a lot more precise and a lot quicker, especially given that we're using copper, which is a lot more expensive than zinc. We don't want to be making mistakes and ruining whole sheets of copper. It's better to get someone who knows what they're doing on that front. And the guy who's doing all the copper will be working in this room, the kitchen technically, which you saw me get together this week. It'll be his little base where he can pre-make a load of stuff that's going to be the same time and time again, like the guttering and things like that. For the more bespoke stuff, like cladding all the dormers and getting all the trim kind of right for each specific angle, he's probably going to bend some of it down here, and then he'll be up on the roof and we'll be cracking all the seams and bending everything in and soldering any joints we need to solder to get all that nice and flush and watertight and fit, you know, like absolutely properly. But before we even get carried away with all that, we've got a humongous amount of prep. We've got wood to finish off on kind of this hat flare bit. We've got to work out exactly how we're bracing wood to kind of carry the weight of the guttering as well. And you know, there's still like a few little design details to go over with a roofer. Like if I want the copper to carry on underneath the hat, normally you'd have, what do you call it in English? You normally have a soffit. So underneath the roof, you'd have like planking or something like that. Normally you'd have like oak planking, something that's durable and nice. I'm wondering if we should just carry on the copper and bring it to the chateau, you know, and kind of just create this big chunky thing. It's going to add the cost, and the roofer isn't that sold on it, but it's little decisions like that we've really got to nail as we start getting up on the roof and putting all the finishes on the roof. Now, in terms of time scale, it really depends how quickly we get all the other little bits done. There's a bit of ordering to do. We need to get some more copper in, and the order's already been done for that. Monday I'm going to put the order in for all the little bits of wood. We don't really want them laying about, even though they are treated, because they're so small they'll easily warp and get degraded by the weather. So we're kind of trying to order just enough for what we need, and then we'll order enough for the next bit of roof. We don't want pallets sitting around really. So there's a little bit of ordering time, but we have got loads of things to do in the meantime. We've got to get the dormers up, we've got loads of little bits of wood and bracing to finish. Things when we were doing the roof we were like, oh, that's fine for now, we'll do that later. All them little bits have now got to come together so the roof's ready to take the slates, because it's a huge weight going on there, so the roof's got to be right. I'm very confident about the structure, especially the fact that we clad it in OSB is really going to solidify everything and make it a great base to start slating. So I think we're looking at, for actually putting the stuff on there, probably 2 weeks-ish, something like that. We'll be making a start at least. Then we've got to get everyone together. So in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think we'll be there on site to put slates up, and we'll have worked out all of the logistics of it, you know. And actually after that, probably like 3 weeks, 3-ish weeks to actually just slate and copper the whole of the turret, which is insane. And it's going to make such a difference to the chateau as well. You know, it's one thing having this roof shape there, which is amazing anyway, you know, to get that line back. But to get all them horrible tarps off and all the bits that are blowing in the wind and just see this polished copper and slate thing is going to be like, it's going to really change a place dramatically, you know, I think. And yeah, and after that, like for the whole roof, the time frame, we want to get it done this year. I think, you know, we can't wait any longer. We can't have another winter of it being temporary covered, you know, and little drips coming in here and there. So we've got to get this thing completely slated, flashed, guttering in, water coming away from the chateau. We've got to do it this year, and that's really, in terms of a weather window, we've got to finish it by September. What I'm hoping we can do is we can all tackle the turret, and then we can kind of, hopefully the roofing team can then mostly take over the roof, and we can have, you know, a week or 2 with them helping get it together. But I'm hoping they can like plod along in the background. We don't really know if everyone's available yet, but if they can do that, then it stops things almost moving too quick. If I'm solely concentrated on getting the roof on, then by the time the roof's finished, we're at a stage where, okay, I've got to make the windows for the dormers. There's loads of stuff still really pressing, even though the roof's the most important thing. The stuff that needs to come alongside the roof being done, windows, dormers, strengthening the arch and stuff ahead of the roofers. Like, I need time in my schedule to be able to tackle other things. So hopefully we can kind of work something out in that way. But yeah, it's really exciting to start. I hope you guys feel the excitement too, because, you know, there's one thing getting the roof structure up, but when it's finished and we can reliably, you know, reliably go, okay, we can put something in the chateau now. We can put a permanent floor, we can put plasterboard and insulation, you know, as soon as that roof's done, we can be sure that everything's as good as it's going to be. And the chateau's as strong as it's going to be, you know, all the weight of the roof is pushing down. Yeah, oh, I'm so excited, honestly. And the weather's helping. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown. I hope I haven't just babbled and you've got, you know, you made some sense of it. And I'll see you next week for me and Brian up there finishing the last little bits and getting all this thing scaffolded, ready to do some dangly high stuff. 24 meters, just to the, it's high, isn't it? See you tomorrow.